Well, it's just been announced by the Sheriff's Office in Mountain County, California, that Mr. Williams was found hanged by his assistant at his home. And in central London is Alexei Sayle, founding father of the Comedy Store, where Robin Williams played some of his early stand-up gigs. Thank you very much for joining our program on such a sad day. Alexei Sayle, I think you first met Robin Williams in 1981 when he came to the Comedy Store, and I think he was supposed to do some stand-up for 5 minutes, and it ended up being there a little bit longer. Is that right?
Nearly. It was 79. It was the first year of the Comedy Store, and he'd actually been in Malta for 9 months, I think, making his first film, which was Popeye with Robert Altman, which I don't know if was a particularly happy experience. And then he just came to London, got in a cab, said, "Take me to a comedy club," and I think the cabbie must have been a particularly kind of hip one, because the Comedy Store was the only comedy club in Britain, really. So otherwise he would have found himself at the Circus Tavern in Purfleet with Jim Davidson. And he turned up and he said, you know, "Excuse me, can I go on?" And I said, "What's your name?" And he said, "Robin Williams." And I kind of went, but he wasn't really, he wasn't that well known in this country then, but I was a huge fan of Mork and Mindy, which I think they used to put on a Saturday morning because they thought it was a kid's show, but it was very sexy and very funny show, and clearly Robin was, you know, contributing a great deal to the script. And so he did, that first night he did like 45 minutes or something. I mean, I wasn't going to stop him, you know.
You weren't going to take him off stage. And what was he so good at? What was he so good at? I mean, I've seen him a couple of times, and it was that incredible sort of electrifying ability to improvise and grab things out of the air that you just couldn't imagine.
Well, I watched him because he used to turn up at the Comedy Store and then the comic strip, and so I got to see him a lot. And after a while, I mean, because I was in the business as well, that I analysed what he was doing, and in fact, he wasn't improvising. And I don't like improvisation. I just think that's, you know, that's not the job really. But what he had was a vast amount of material, and he had tricks like that Elmer Fudd, you know, voice and doing, or John Wayne doing Shakespeare or whatever. He had those tricks that he would pull out the bag, and that for me was more admirable because, you know, he wasn't. It was the result of a massive amount of work and a massive dedication to the business of doing comedy. You can only be that slick if you do it all the time, you know.
And did you know at the time that he was suffering from depression, that these were the demons that he was battling behind that mask of comedy?
Well, he was a comedian, so I assumed there was something dark going on there. I mean,
is there with all comedians?
Well, kind of. I mean, you know, what defines it? I mean, a comedian is somebody who's not even like an actor, because, you know, who has to share the stage with other actors, or a musician who has to share the stage with the rest of the band. The comedian is like a lone wolf for the entertainment tundra. You know, they're people who want everything for themselves, all the attention, and what that comes from is a dire need to control and to make people laugh and to be loved, you know, and you could see that tremendous drive in Robin, that he had to perform, you know, and that's what made him great, you know. That dire need is what made him fantastic. That dedication, but it obviously, you know, you pay a price for that, you know. No normal person would put up with the rejection, you know. If you die in front of an audience, you know, that's the language that comedians use, then it's, you know, you can't blame the set or the other actors. It's you they hate. Yeah. And, you know, you're always teetering on that knife edge, really, you know, of rejection and self-hatred.
On that note, we've got to end it. Alexei Sayle, thank you very much indeed for joining us.
You're welcome.
And both Krish and I have been blogging about our own memories of Robin Williams. To read them, go to our website, channel4.com/news.